Okay, board members, we're coming back. We're now going to have the superintendent's report, which is going to be brief.
I'm not sure if that was a caution or yeah. All right, so
that's a clue.
Actually, that cautionary clue about brevity, this was when I was going to take longer than ever before, so I'm going to give you a speed tour. I sent you a preview, just kind of talking about the things that I found on my little road trip recently, and we've got more schools to visit, but I can tell you that it's worth every minute that I spent out on the road with schools. And since I can't take you with me, I'm going to take you on the journey. But Chair Huntsman was with me for one day, and it was awesome to have him there. So just a reminder of why I do this. The intended outcomes are really looking at best practices, building relationships out there, being able to interact with people in their setting, and hearing from students. I love to talk to the students as well as the teachers, and then providing you with feedback, state policymakers, local policymakers. And I feel like less than half of you are paying attention.
I'm listening.
Classroom management.
All right, here we are. Okay, moving along. So here's some of the things the feedback that I got from the districts and charters. We met together. On one occasion, it was at lunch. On the other two, it was at breakfast, and we'll continue to do that where we sort of meet over a meal and have conversation. But here are the things that teachers, leaders, and local policymakers talk to me about. Of course, the things that you would assume: recruiting and retaining effective teachers, providing students with early learning opportunities. There's some good data out there from extended day kindergarten, as some of them are trying to start preschools, but very few opportunities for early learning in some of our most rural and remote communities. They all talked about how they're trying to address student mental health issues and how they need more help. And then, of course, transportation we talked a lot about. So here are the districts that I visited. Those that are in blue are the ones that I've already visited, I should say. In black, they are scheduled over the next several weeks. And then Success Academy in green, I was able to visit with their board president, their board chair, and their principal, but didn't get on their side, and I will go back and visit them. Also attended Q's little on-site meeting with them that I'll share with you, and we'll be visiting News when I get up to Wasatch. So just a little walkthrough of the three districts. Here we have Millard School District, and again, I was so thrilled to have Chair Huntsman with me. It was great fun, and Representative Merrill Nilsson. And just some overall takeaways without getting into every detail. Just in general, they really are providing opportunities for students to access advanced coursework. A lot of times we think that rural and remote school districts are unable to do that, but I want to share with you how they do that. They're using technology in really effective ways to advance learning, and students are really having opportunities to experience the arts. So just a quick run through, you'll see this screen on the left-hand side. We stepped into a school using a classroom using IVC for concurrent enrollment. There were 11 different sites in this class at the time, and it was a psychology class, I believe. And the students down below were the students seated in this classroom, and I got to talk to them before the class started. And what I love about kids in rural settings, I want to be careful so that we don't identify faces in schools. But anyway, these students, so they might say, you know, I'm in 3 classes of concurrent enrollment. And then their teacher would say, and he also holds the state track record for the 100-meter. And then another person would say, and he's playing the Prince and Cinderella in our school play. And this is the young man in the yellow shirt who would say, yeah, I hope you'll come back and see me. So these kids are having these amazing integrated opportunities, and all of the students that were surrounding me, you could see they're just busy, engaged, happy, and they were so excited to tell me all the things that they're doing. The teacher up in the right-hand corner teaches 2 sessions of AP chemistry, which is amazing in a little high school, and his classes are full. You can't see that there. A few kids were just wandering in, but he has about 30, I think they said 30 to 35 in each section. So that's, you know, that's pretty amazing that when you have a wonderful teacher who really has the kids engaged. And I was able to talk to the students about this class, and they love it. We saw a lot of music, theater, and visual arts happening in Millard, and just outstanding orchestras and bands, and it was just something to behold. one of the things I loved about how they're using technology both to accelerate some learning for kids and then some students who might be struggling on the left, they have a co-op with their power plant. IPP, which is the power plant. And they have trained volunteers there who have the same books that the kids have in front of them, and they're working together through Skype. And so these are their reading buddies, and the power plant gives them an extra 30 minutes for lunch if they'll engage in this. And they have this wonderful person who trains on both sides and really organizes the program. On the right-hand side, you can see some students who are using an opportunity to engage in social studies, and they were teaching me how to use slides outside of PowerPoint using a different program. It was pretty amazing. Oh, thank you. I did that without kids. Okay. So a lot of hands-on science. We got to see rockets launching and learning about the water cycle and all sorts of things. And of course, my favorite was getting to wrap my arms around Utah's first Teacher of the Year, Ag, whom many of you have met. And he came over to Fillmore Middle just to meet us. He knew we were coming. It was a great relationship with Chair Huntsman, and that was one of the highlights. Moving into Sevier. Sevier School District is really focused on culture and climate. And I will tell you that I encountered a pocket of poverty in Sevier District like nothing I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of poverty around this state, but there was this little pocket of about what I would say 10 square blocks, and I just can't even publicly tell you the details. It was just heartbreaking to me, but I also got to meet the students living in these homes, and the things that they were accomplishing were just outstanding. I met the kids first, and then driving through this particular area, Superintendent Douglas would say, "Do you remember so-and-so who you met? That's the house that he lives in," or "This is the home that she comes from." And it's just really warmed my heart to see how they're meeting individual needs. They have this beautiful new CTE center where they're very focused on pathways that I'll share with you. And then they're really integrating the arts at all levels, elementary, secondary as well. So you can see sort of this smattering of all the things that the kids are able to do, but very, very hands-on and very engaged. We entered into the CTE building, and it's just this massive, amazing place. And the kids are so excited about the things they're working on, whether it's culinary or biotech, biomed, woodworking, and they're really starting to work with the community, not only to try and build skills for kids to get a 1, 2, or 4-year degree, but really thinking about how can we build our economy and keep the kids here. It's not to prepare them to move away from Sevier necessarily, but to really grow the economy and citizenry there in Sevier County. They're really paying attention to climate and culture. And one of my favorite things, I like to ask kids, what are you learning? What is the most important thing you're learning? And inevitably, in a lot of schools, they'll say science or math. It's kind of usually their favorite thing. In this case, I went into a middle school serving, I think it was 67% of their students live at or above the poverty line. And what I loved, the kids said to me, first thing, we're learning kindness, teamwork, cooperation, how to be civically engaged. I just melted when I heard that information because they got it, and you could see it in the hallways and in the classrooms and the way they were treating one another. And they really have an emphasis about college, not just here in Utah, but helping kids think more broadly. And kindness was a big focus, and you could see that. I took a picture of the lunchroom because I stood above and watched kids at a high school level. They feed most of their students on campus, even though they can go off campus. So students either walk home or they stay in the lunchroom. And to just watch how they were treating each other. I didn't see anyone sitting alone, and they were sharing, and it was just really a lovely culture. I had to share this at CUES because they're doing something kind of unique. CUES has hired this gentleman on the right to work with high school students in computer repair, and they're able to save about $90 per computer by engaging the students. They pay them $9 an hour. They're making great wages, but they're getting credit, right, for these classes in computer repair. So on the left, you see, I don't know if oops, that didn't work too well. I was going to broaden that for you, but you can see this microscope. If you look up at the top and you can see sort of the little microchips with the barriers or the bookends on them, they were working on that the particular day we were there, and one of those little bars is the size of a grain of rice. So the students were working with those and repairing the computers. So a junior and a senior here in this case, and they hope to expand that. And again, keep the kids in the valley, employ them, but teach them a real marketable skill that they can do from home. Moving along to Iron District, I saw a lot of really unique ways that they're starting to personalize learning for students, and this is where I've already talked about the pilot of trauma-informed practice. They have some great flexibility in their calendars, and you can see how they're really paying attention to individual success. I want to highlight one thing I saw that I thought was so unique. A lot of our schools have flex time, but the 3 high schools in Iron all have flex time, and it looks a little bit different in each high school, but the day I observed, it's in this particular high school, it's placed right before lunch. So at about 10 o'clock, they have advisory, and that's about 7 minutes where they go to class. Those of you that work in the high schools are familiar with them. They do the Pledge of Allegiance. They have morning announcements, and then they get these, if they've been tagged, they get a ticket. And the tag has just a little piece of paper that tells them which classroom they've been tagged for and the project that they need to work on. And boy, the kids grab those and they go right to the class. So, for example, in pottery, these students had a project due with a week to go, and instead of waiting 24 hours before, the teacher tagged some kids that needed to come in and finish up. What you can't see on the right side are students who didn't get tagged. They were caught up in all of their work, and they were there just working on projects because they had this 45 minutes of flex time and wanted to be there. The band room you see on the right, or the orchestra rather, this teacher is working with second violins. What you can't see around the perimeter were practice rooms for kids who are working on solos, ensembles. So kids have a lot of choice, but it's about I'm catching up, I'm accelerating. And for some kids, it's just, I'm not doing either one, but I have 45 minutes of choice to work on whatever I want. Kids were not in the halls. This was well oiled. I talked to the kids and they love it. I asked them if they've ever felt targeted or embarrassed if they were tagged, and they said no. Our teachers are letting us know and kind of helping us keep track ahead of time so that we don't get behind in school, and we have a lot of choice. I went into a pre-engineering and architecture class, and I thought this was really clever. On the wall, you see the tiles of the screens of all the students. What a great way to know what your students are doing, and instead, he was still roaming around, but you can see on the wall, and they were monitoring each other. And I watched a young man look up and see on one of the designs that one of his peers was off a little. And he got up and walked over. He said, "Hey, I'm noticing you did this. I tried that same thing, and let me just show you what I did," and fixed it. And the kid fixed it. He said, "Oh, thanks, buddy." So they can kind of monitor and help each other by seeing that, but the teacher monitors. And again, you had advanced engineering, pre-engineering, and architecture all happening in this classroom with the teacher monitoring. The other thing was they had really clear messaging of expectations. This was a little elementary school where they had all this kind of messaging about they're the Iron Spring Miners. And so the students were working with teachers to come up with school-wide norms of behavior. And there were these random throughout that just teach them how to be good learners and good citizens. And I just thought it was so consistent and so clear, and you could hear the language amongst the students. This is the champs room I was telling you about in a middle school. And if you're to walk through that door, just, out of privacy, because there were a couple of kids in there, I didn't take pictures inside, but calming music, natural lighting, some comfortable chairs, and a whole little stash of, they could use, stress balls and flippers and puzzles and art projects, and they had these protocols for how much time kids could go in there, and then if they wanted to talk to the counselor that was in there, they could, but it was just really a way for them to come in and calm down. And they have all these ways to mitigate kids not, that sounded like mitigate students not abusing the protocol for champs. So just one of the ways that they were providing that for kids. So here are my takeaways. First and foremost, demographics do not define us. And I think so often we put labels on kids based on what they look like, ability or disability, or where they live. And we've got to be really clear that those do not define us. And sometimes it means that we have to provide extra resources. I'm so proud to work for a board that prioritizes equity as one of your imperatives. because I feel very strongly that demographics do not define us. If a scrawny kid from a 2-room schoolhouse can be state superintendent, then I'm always going to remember this. So school leaders improve outcomes, and I saw this everywhere, when they're intentionally attending to school climate, culture, high expectations for students, and ensuring that teachers have the resources they need and they're working with parents. Rural schools are some of the most creative. Wouldn't you say so, Chair Huntsman?
We are creative.
Truly some of the most creative with some limited resources. I'm amazed at the things I saw them do, and really providing opportunities for students to achieve. And the students that I encountered were engaged and positive and happy. And this is when they didn't know I was looking, and that's the most important. You know, what are they doing when they don't know that you're watching them? And the conversations I had with them were just so positive. And again, bookending it with leadership matters, leadership matters, leadership matters. The principals that I met were rock stars. And here's my little tile. It's like, you know, so you all know, or many of you know, that Sting is like a rock star that I love. So this is sort of like all my stings across the state of people that I think are rock stars because they were leading their schools to greatness. And I just so appreciate our good principals. It's Principals Month and Principals Week, and we should really be giving them shout outs and celebrating the good work that they do. So that's my road trip, and Utah schools are on the road to awesome. So thanks.
Any questions for the superintendent? I just might, yes. Will your mic?
Oh my gosh.
Board member Liz.
As a board member, I would love to go with you sometime if you need a driving companion, and I would go to, you know, Park City or Salt Lake that I represent, but I just think that would be really fun to see.
I think I sent you all out a list, and I had one board member take advantage of it.
Oh, I didn't see a list.
It was about a month ago.
Oh, I went tonight. Well, you have, I went to.
Maybe I was a lazy
You know what?
reader.
I will resend it because I've got a few more to go.
That's the better answer.
You made it so fun. Now we're going to do it.
I have to say, though, Chair, if I may, I like to be low-key. I do not want an entourage. So if 5 of you want to come with me, I might just, like, say another time, because I really am trying to get into classes and be subtle and, yeah. Oh, I did go to Washington, and it was an entourage. Last year.
No, I understand.
Okay. Board member Hanlon.
I've been with Sid, but I've been out on my own too, and they treat you really well. All you have to do is call your schools, and they'd love to have you come and take a little tour, so it's fun.
Okay. Well, thank you, Superintendent, and it was fun.
Thanks for indulging me.
Yeah, it was fun hanging with you that day. Okay, we're moving right along.